The story I have for you right now would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. Quite frankly, I don't know if the politicians of this country listen to the words coming out of their mouth, if they even understand half the time when they speak how absolutely stupid they sound. But apparently, it is just sort of what it is here in South Africa. We consistently have these politicians that say things that sound good, right? There's nothing wrong with saying the particular things that you're saying, except in the context of South Africa, what you're saying is completely bonkers. I wanted to use a different word, but YouTube would immediately demonetize the video if I were to use that word. Now, the very stupid statements that's made today, and what today's video is about, is from Minister Gwede Mantashe, and he was speaking at the G20 Critical Minerals Framework, where he was discussing what South Africa needs to do and what South Africa requires and needs in order to become a prosperous nation. So he says the most important thing for us as developing economies is that we should not be bullied for what we own. We must have a view, and our view must be respected. Remember that these critical minerals, people need them. They must talk to us. We must not give them critical minerals on their own terms, and our views are ignored. If you get a 30% tariff imposed on you, please send those minerals somewhere else where there are no tariffs, where you get fair value. The problem that the minister has here is, while yes, right, you are as a country allowed to have your own views, your views may conflict with other countries' views, in which case that country does not have to give you access to their markets. That country can absolutely tell you, look, as long as you hold these specific views, for example, during apartheid, a lot of the countries around the world looked at the apartheid system and said to the National Party, boys, we don't want to trade with you. You're welcome to your views, and if you want to be super apartheid and super segregated, that's your choice. But then we will not trade with you because that does not align with our values. And as such, that's what they did, right? And no one said that that's unfair. That is the right of every country to make decisions for themselves. The thing with South Africa is that we consistently want to hold our little views and then blame everyone else for not wanting to allow us to side with Iran, side consistently with some of the worst leaders throughout the world. Che Guevara, just this last weekend, was praised by Cyril Ramaphosa as an absolute champion of human rights, which is insane considering the amount of people that guy killed and how evil he was. This is a government that stands on the principle of the Soviet Union, not realizing the Soviet Union has millions upon millions of its own people dead as a result of seeking its utopia or whatever. But where it really gets annoying, right, is where he starts to talk from the perspective of trade, right, and what we should be doing with trade. So if being a member of BRICS attracts tariffs from the US, it says to us, let's diversify our markets more aggressively and not focus where tariffs are imposed on us. We must sell where we get optimal market value for our minerals. That's what we should be doing. It's our duty. We must work together in that. What most of you, and I don't mean most of you watching, but there are some people watching that continuously will say to me, well, if the US doesn't want to trade with us, we'll just find other partners. You don't seem to understand how trade works. So first and foremost, if the US stops protecting ships moving to and from South Africa's done. No other country in the world has the naval capabilities to protect seafarer across along the African coast. No countries will send goods to South Africa because their ships will no longer be protected, and South African companies will not send goods to the rest of the world because their ships will no longer be protected. So just keep that in mind, first and foremost. It is America that protects the waters and keep the ocean safe so that people can actually trade. More importantly, about 20% of all rand-denominated debt in South Africa is owned by the United States. These are entities and corporations within the United States. If Donald Trump says to these entities, sell your debt now, we have a complete and utter meltdown. It happened in the 1980s. Davy Rood spoke about this 2 days ago on State of the Nation. In the 80s, this is exactly what happened to the National Party and the South African government. Overnight, the world said, to its stakeholders. Actually, America was the one who laid the charge on this. Sell all of your debt. You're not allowed to hold any rand debt. It sent the South African markets into a complete crash down literally the next morning. So that will happen, and the Americans have the ability to do that. More importantly, it's not as if there are countries around the world just waiting, chomping at the bit to start trading with South Africa. All countries around the world that are trading with South Africa are trading with South Africa and buying from South Africa. They don't necessarily want to buy more. It's not as easy as just saying, hey, we'll just offload these goods to you instead, because most of these other countries will most likely say, well, we have what we need, and we also want to be trading with other people. We can't just be buying everything from you. So, no thanks. That means that the majority of the trade that you'll lose from the US, you'll just lose. You might be able to offset some of it, maybe 10, 20% of that you can put somewhere else, but you'll still, the bulk of it will just be lost as no one else really needs this, and we in our own country don't have the ability to utilize it. But then, and this is where he gets the real fun stuff, he goes, we mine, we make other countries rich, and we remain poor. The time for exporting raw commodities as they are has come to an end. Let's add value close to the point of production and export processed minerals, not raw commodities. Quotas of minerals must be processed here. We set them, and we must all comply with that. So the people who want to add value on critical minerals must come here and add value here. So here is what Mr. Gwede Mantashe seems to just fundamentally leave out of his equation. First, the fact that he wants to impose quotas on it. In other words, if we're extracting 100 million tons of steel from the earth every single month, they'll put a thing on that says, well, 80 million tons of that must be processed and refined right here in South Africa, must be smelted here in South Africa. That's great. No problem. Yes, we should technically not just be exporting our raw minerals, except there's one tiny little problem. So if you look at the smelters here in South Africa, right, and most of them are already running at capacity, a large smelter will use anywhere from 1,200 to about 1,500 megawatts per hour, right? Per hour. Compare that to the city of Johannesburg, which is between 3,000 and 4,000 megawatts per hour. This means that one smelter will burn at the equivalent of about 30 to 40% of a total city's energy consumption. And that's not even talking about the largest smelters that you need, or the capacity that you need to build in order to smelt most of the minerals and metals here in South Africa. That's just talking about the ones we currently have. It's not cheap, and we don't have the energy for it. Eskom is already struggling. So what exactly is the minister's idea? What does the minister think will happen? Just saying to people, you must refine your goods here, doesn't make it possible. What, all of these countries around the world are now suddenly going to move to South Africa, open their smelters here? With what energy? With what business security? All you want is, you want these companies to come here, sign over 30% of their money to your cadres so that they can get rich, and then we just get back to load shedding, I guess. It's insane to me just how stupid our ministers actually are, right? But here's the problem. Just one final highlight. One of the things that the government of South Africa has to grapple with is the price of electricity. Now, the availability of electricity is more important, but never mind, right? Our government cannot be competitive if our prices of electricity are at the level they are. And that's the problem. Our government cannot be competitive. You see, these ANC ministers cannot think in terms of what the actual use case is of the government. To them, the government and the state and the citizens are undeniably linked. It's the same thing. There is no such thing as a competitive government. There are competitive economies. There are competitive corporations. But a government does not compete against anyone. A government is a collection of people meant to administer and administrate the state. That's it. The fact that in South Africa we have this cockeye thinking of the government has to be great is at the core of all of our problems. As a government, you have failed. As a party, you have failed. As a minister, you have failed. You continue to fail. Stop taking us down with you, please. Gwede Mantashe, we're done. We're sick and tired of this. We will never start smelting this stuff. We won't refine this stuff because you're still not building new power stations. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And you're going to try and refine on renewable energy? Like, that is just the most ridiculous thing ever. There isn't enough batteries in the world to account for all the plans that you guys have that will just ultimately fail. But hey, let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about this. It is insane. Reading and listening to what our ministers have to say and just realizing that these guys genuinely don't know what they're doing. They're just speaking because somehow speaking is fun, I guess. But I would love to read your thoughts. As always, thank you so much for all of your support. If you like what I do, you want to see more people see the content that I make, please hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and also consider becoming a member or a patron. Hit the join button below this video or link in the description down below. Patron, all videos are completely ad-free. Always be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. A peace.